Welcome to Zero's Game Room, where all things gaming takes place, interviews, discussions, and the latest gaming news. So take a seat, get comfortable, adjust your headset, because it's game time. Here's your host, Zero.
Welcome to Zero's Game Room, the podcast where we talk about all things gaming. And in this 10th episode, I can't even believe we're in that far, we have a very special guest. He is the star of the show Noggin. He goes by Lockstin or Austin, but Lockstin from Noggin is here in Zero's Game Room. Welcome, man.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Now, if you didn't know, Lockstin, or he has a show called Noggin on YouTube, and he does a whole bunch of theories, and the things he talks about are just truly amazing. But let's start from the roots, shall we? So, Lockstin, Austin, how did you get into this YouTube?
Well, it started in high school. I was bored, so I started just playing around with Photoshop and video editing programs. Eventually started diving into it, just putting together stupid videos. Not for YouTube. I never uploaded any of them during high school. But eventually, during freshman year of college, like the idea popped into my head to just start overanalyzing video games. And so I just started doing exactly that. It was, Matt Pett's Game Theory show. At the time, he only had like 10,000 subscribers, and like it was exactly his fourth or fifth video that like he asked other people to help him create a big crossover web. And so that was my first video, was a big crossover web, looking at all the times different characters meet in different media and just building upon that. And eventually it just spiraled
into what you've created today.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I love the name Noggin. Where did that come from? Where did Lockstin, Noggin, how did this all come to be? How did it come to fruition?
The Lockstin part of the name is just the username I've used since probably forever. Ever since Steam was a thing, I used it because it's the first part of my last name and the last part of my first name. So
I never noticed that.
It's like a little bit of a syllable mishmashing, and it just becomes Lockstin. And so I had always used that, but Lockstin in and of itself doesn't really work as like a name for a smart kind of show on the internet. So I had to come up with something. I really like skulls, so I was like, oh, maybe skull bones or boneheads or something. No. And then I just started looking up synonyms. Noggin came up. Noggin's already used. What if I added a silent G to the beginning? There you go. And then eventually the G, I decided, stands for like geek or gaming. You use the gaming part of your noggin. Aha. Clever.
Ha. Yeah, and I always love how you end your show, Noggin, like never, don't stop, or what? How does it go?
And please remember to never stop using your noggin.
Oh my gosh. I think my ears just had like a nerd alert happen right now. But so you do a whole bunch of theories. One of the more popular ones that I've seen so far was the big Pokemon theory that you had, like the reboot. Talk about that and like things that went into creating this huge theory. Because I've seen a lot of people, and just even people around my school, have talked about this theory.
If you look at my channel page and the videos I did a video like a month or two before that one entitled Solgaleo is the deepest lore that any legendary Pokemon has had, or something along those lines. And it was just, hey, Solgaleo, it's the alchemic lion. That's really cool, and like the typings and everything lines up perfectly. And I had no idea at the time that it was going to turn into some crazy deep conspiracy level stuff. But eventually, as I did digging into that, I was wondering, Solgaleo's really deep. I wonder if Lunala's super deep or something. And then sure enough, it is. And then, well, I wonder if like the plot of the game is kind of deep, because like X and Y started like pointing at things, and just everything turned into like, in the end, it was around 400 something hours of just research and writing. Like that
is a lot of hours of writing and research. Oh my gosh.
But like it all paid off, because like that is my most popular series so far, and like I don't even it's also the most fun I've ever had in making anything, just because of how deep it is and how much I learned. My favorite videos are always the ones where I learn something while I make them, And like I had never looked into pseudoscience and alchemy and stuff, all kinds of different religions and mythos background stuff. Just
Oh yeah, I had like the amount, like you do not understand the amount of effort. If you have not checked out Noggins or Lockstins, like this series of the Pokemon, like it's the end. It's crazy. He goes into all this alchemy and just it all lines up so perfectly. It's almost mind blowing. And so, how did you get Birdkeeper Toby, another YouTuber, to get in on this?
Birdkeeper Toby and I before then had been talking a lot for about a year or so. Just because I helped his channel grow and everything too. We've done a lot of collabs. And so when this one came around, I needed help because it's way too much for me to just, hi YouTube, I'm going to present all this information to you. I needed to format it in some way that would keep it interesting throughout the 4+ hours of video it is. And I figured a conversation style video presentation would work a lot better. So I called him up and like, hey, I need your help.
And he was totally on board.
Yeah.
I love how you always ended it like on a cliffhanger where something else was just like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And then boom, next episode. And like you'd keep us waiting and like in agony wanting to know what was next. And so how tell us a little bit about the process that goes in your mind. Like, how do you know what you want to do a theory about? Is it just kind of like pure random luck, or is it something that you're talking about? Maybe it's a game you're playing.
It's a weird mix of basically everything. A lot of times I'll look in advance, hey, 3-4 months from now, are there any game releases or things that are going to be popular? Because it is good to follow trends for the most part. So like, hey, new Pokemon game's releasing, I should make some Pokemon videos, or a new Mario, I should make some Mario videos. But otherwise, it's just things pop in your head. Like, a lot of the Breath of the Wild videos that I've been posting lately, it's just things like, oh geez, my shield just caught on fire. How hot is it here for my shield to just catch on fire from the air?
Right. Yeah. Because that's your most recent episode as of right now. It's the what would happen if you visited Death Mountain. So talk a little bit about like kind of how that happened. Was it literally just you went in there and you're like,
yeah,
how hot is it?
It's just, I'm the kind of person that asks questions about everything. On one hand, it's really cool because it gives me excuses to do like research on topics I'd never learned about. I'm a big self-learner. At the same time, though, it makes suspense of disbelief a little tricky to have. And so, like, a lot of times watching movies and games, you just think, oh, that's not possible. Great.
Right. So you're the guy who questions everything, right? And it has to make either some sort of logical sense.
Yeah. Thankfully, though, I can give Because Magic a pass. How does Link survive this? Because magic. There you go.
I think in one point in one of the episodes, you're like, how does this happen? Well, the answer is simple. It's a video game. But then, I love how you add that like humor, but you actually then go into like the actual physical science of things. Mm-hmm. Going back to something you said earlier, you said that like this was around MatPat. A lot of people know who MatPat is, game theory. Would you say that he is like the inspiration, the kind of like the catalyst to start your channel?
Definitely what started it. Like, I had been interested in the idea before, just because also Mythbusters is one of my favorite TV shows, and that was also airing around the same time, so it was definitely a combination of the two. But, like, the thing that always kept me from actually doing it and posting videos about it was, I figured, there's no market for doing this. I'd just be spending tons of time. Like, it'd still be fun, but I'm in the middle of college. I don't have time to pump hours and hours and hours into video production if no one's watching it, But when I found his channel, boom, there is a market. I guess I can actually do what I want.
When did your channel blow up, in a sense? Like, when did people started catching on to Lockstin, to Noggin?
It took about a year and a half maybe, if I go to my video history, just because starting a YouTube channel is always difficult, especially if it's one that doesn't always follow trends.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to sometimes it's something that you would rather do than just follow the trends.
Yeah, and by the way, that's also like the hardest business decision I always have to make. It's like, can I afford to follow, or can I afford to do what I want to do, or do I have to follow the trends a little bit this month?
Right. Because there's some episodes where you're just talking about one thing, and then you talk about, like, let's say, for example, you were talking about like a Mario theory or whatever. It might get more videos or views than just some random off video that you're making about something you'd really want. And so I've seen that your theories are pretty crazy. Like, where do these theories come up with? Because some of them are like outrageous, like real or fake is like, okay, maybe this one's a little more better, like the whole Dr. Mario theory. But there has to be a point where, like, that these theories just come into your head and you want to explore them.
A lot of the time it's just, where is the science in this? Like, how does the one I always mention to people, like when they ask, hey, what do you do for a living? I always bring up the Science of the Fireflower video, because, like, it's a iconic power-up in a video game, and, like, it's a plant that causes fire. There has to be in some magical realm where that's completely possible, and so I look and just, yeah, it's just, the question arises, how would this work? And then you look up different kinds of plant chemical compositions. So what do you need to make fire? Well, you need these chemicals. Are there any plants that are similar? Yes, there's these plants. And then if you just rub these plants together enough, boom, fire.
Wow. That's insane to think that these things are actually in nature, which potentially could be inspired, you know?
Yeah, like in video games and media will always exaggerate. Like, there's no way you could actually take, I think it's like the Russian skunk lily or something like that is the one plant that actually would work as a fireflower. But, like, really, it's a plant that generates heat. That's all it can really do in real life. So in the Mushroom Kingdom, it's that kind of plant, but times 1,000.
So for a long time, you went only as Noggin, and we went over, like, where the name Lockstin came from, but why I don't want to call it separation, but for the most part, you were only always Noggin. Why did you decide to include Lockstin into the mix?
I was getting bored. I'm also, on top of being a super researchy person, I also am I like being creative. And the idea behind Noggin is that it's a gaming channel, a gaming show, but it's also smart. You know, it's not just, haha, look at this funny game thing that's happening. It's, hey, let's analyze this stuff and do some education things. But, like, that was also trapping me creatively. Like, I couldn't then do just some stupid funny video without it being educational. So I added in the Lockstin separation and made the Lockstin series just like vlogs or discussions or here's a stupid skit.
Some of those skits are really interesting, which kind of brings up my next point. You've brought certain guests. We talked about Birdkeeper Toby, but there was another guest that I've seen, Arlo. How did he get involved in this?
It's a good story with Arlo. We had lived in the same city for almost our whole lives, but we didn't know each other at all until one day a mutual friend was like, hey, you should totally check each other out. I think you guys would be cool together. And that's pretty much it.
That's insane to think. So you guys had no idea you guys lived in the same city.
Mm-hmm. And, like, it's a small city too. It's not like a small town, but it's like population 80,000. So it's definitely not a major city either.
Right. And you guys just started collabing together. So looking forward into the future, what are some things that you would like to learn more? Like some other topics that you haven't touched on yet? Because the white elephant in the room is that a majority, or at least, would you say that a majority of your theories are based around Pokemon?
Right now I think so. It's definitely mostly Nintendo. That's for sure. It's probably like 80 to 85, maybe even 90% Nintendo. But of the Nintendo stuff, it's definitely mostly Pokemon, and then Mario is a close second. This particular year, I'm planning on looking more into movie stuff, actually. This is about a month ago, I posted a video about what would happen if you had Wolverine's skeleton. I'm wanting to do more, like, superhero science kind of stuff. and just comic books in general. I have a Hulk video in the works right now, and also a Dragon Ball Z video.
Ooh, that would be quite interesting.
But yeah, I'm trying to get away kind of from video games. Like, I don't want to leave it. I just want to branch out and do more stuff.
Kind of like how you said you're a creative person. You always want to improve your content, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so moving forward, I'm super excited to see what you have in store. Now, at one point in time, I do believe I saw a video on your channel that you somehow made it onto the news.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that real quickly.
It's actually not that impressive because I worked there. The last job I held before I just did YouTube for a living was at an ABC news station. And, like, so I told them, like, hey, I'm going to quit in, like, a month. They then said, oh, well, where are you going? What are you doing? So I told them I'm going to do YouTube full time because at this point, doing that would be more beneficial to me than staying here. And they thought that was really, really cool, so they wanted to do a news story on me.
Oh my god.
For a slow day, of course.
Well, yeah, but still, I still think that's pretty impressive. You were on the news, you know, using your noggin, you made it to the news. Hey, it's the news.
It's the local news, though, but yeah.
Hey, I'd take it, okay? I don't know about you. But so far, out of, again, it might be redundant to ask this, but what is your favorite theory that you've done? I know you said that the ones you like the most are the ones where you learn, but is there one in particular that you were like, hey, this is really good? Like, I put my heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this.
Besides the Pokemon one?
Yeah, besides the Pokemon one, because that one is an obvious one.
I really, really like all of the psychology ones I do. Like the psychology series. Like the most recent one, I think, is the Samus psychology. And then before that, I had the psychology of Harley Quinn and domestic violence. And then I have a video about Smash Brothers relating to autism. Just because I never took any psychology courses, so it's a whole field that I had no idea about before I started researching it.
And then so you do your research. And about how long, depending, I mean, of course it's going to vary, but on average, how much research, and again, let's not use the Pokemon theory, but on average, how much time does it take to research this kind of theories?
For topics that I don't know anything about, usually, I have no idea, at least a week. But, in general, it usually works out to, including research, writing, voicing, and editing, including all of it, it works out to about an hour and a half of work produces 1 minute of video.
Wow.
There was a time last year I actually timed it out, and that's what it averaged out to.
Wow. And now you have, I think, editors, right? Or people helping you out a little bit, right?
Yes, because I was working 80 hours a week. So I decided that was too much. It's stressing me out. I need help. So now I have a crew of like 3, I guess 2 other people that do work regularly, and then 1 or 2 others that occasionally help.
Okay. So going from your favorite theory and the workload, is there one theory that you would say I probably would have liked to spend a little more time on it than... Like, have you ever done one that was maybe a little rushed or it just wasn't your best work? Or do you believe that, like, every single one you put your heart into it?
Oh, loads. Because at this point, doing YouTube is a business now. So I always have to make those business decisions. Do I have time to finish this one and polish it, or do I have to push it? And thankfully, I haven't had to push videos much recently, but, like, last year, because I was working 80 hours a week, I had to push a lot of them. So, like, last year there are plenty of ones that I would have loved to spend more time on. I'm trying to find examples. The Robotnik vs. Eggman one, Amiibo Truth, there's a ton of, like, just history of consoles. It's a lot of simple, easy-to-do videos during that time period. And that's, like, the time period of videos that I am not a fan of. Just because I didn't have the time to be super creative. I had to do things that would sell, and I hate that. I want to do what I want to do. But that was just because I was going through a rough patch at the time, and now things are now things are fine.
And moving forward, hopefully you have more things to come. I can't wait to see what kind of crazy theories you come up with and that's the thing that I want people to understand. We've been throwing the word theory around, but you need to understand Lockstin, he really does the research. Like, things do add up. This isn't just he goes on and says, oh, well, I think this. He backs it up, and not even with just one example. You've used, again, I have to talk about it because it was so amazing, your Pokemon theory. You used alchemy. Who studies alchemy anymore?
Well, apparently Game Freak.
Yeah, apparently, right? But Lockstin, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. I cannot wait to see what you have in store. But can we have, just to end off this episode, that amazing outro of yours for Noggin?
Sure thing. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, make sure you never stop using that noggin.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Zero's Game Room. Want to give a special thanks to my graphics designer @Trekit on Twitter and @David_Ritter for voicing my intro. Keep up to date with the podcast by liking it on Facebook @Zero's Gaming Room and on Twitter @Zero's Game Room. Until next time, GG with a definite re.